Live from downtown Detroit, home of WDIV and Click on Detroit, Local 4 News at noon starts now.
You are taking a live look here at very active 4 Live radar. We could be in for a nasty afternoon and even a potentially dangerous evening commute. Meteorologist Brandon Roo's forecast is straight ahead. And the final day of opening arguments in the impeachment trial of President Trump gets underway in about an hour. But first, we start with breaking news here at noon, and it is some good news. A somewhat happy ending to this story. Detroit police say a missing mother and her 4 children have been found, and they are safe. Detroit police just shared new information at a press conference on the mother and her children's whereabouts. Local 4 Sean Lay was at that press conference. He joins us now live from DPD headquarters here in downtown Detroit. Sean, a big sigh of relief that they all were found safe.
Big time. Here's what we're learning about this case. Mom and her 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, within the past hour or so walked into the Dearborn Police headquarters and let police know that they are indeed okay. Investigators here at DPD on their way over to Dearborn Police to meet with mom and the 4 kids. But they've been missing, however, since Tuesday. I just asked the captain in charge of this investigation why then no Amber Alert was sent out.
There was no Amber Alert because we had concerns for their safety, but we didn't have any information that they were necessarily in danger. They were with their mother, so there was no concern that they were endangered at that time.
However, we were told no one had heard from Cornecia Waiters and her 4 kids since Tuesday when she picked them up. 2 sons, 9 and 11-year-old, picked them up from school in the car with them. Her 2 daughters, just 2 and 4 years old. They picked them up this past Tuesday afternoon from Cornerstone Jefferson Douglas Academy over on 7 Mile, and no one had heard from them since. Now, also in that car, the girls' biological father and stepdad, 2 of the older boys. The next day, he was taken into custody by DPD on suspicion of child abuse. We learned a little bit more about that just upstairs here at DPD, that father was taken into custody on an unrelated accusation of child abuse. We also know that an aunt reported the mom and the 4 kids missing, along with Child Protective Services. So a lot of questions remain, but the big picture here is the good news that mom and the 4 kids, they're okay. Back to you.
Well, Sean, everybody across Metro Detroit is looking for them, and their family had been looking for them since Tuesday. Where were they?
That's the big question. That's unknown right now. We just know that mom was with the 4 kids. Another question we asked is if Child Protective Services is involved with the case here involving stepdad and dad. Was mom moving the kids around, concerned that she may lose the kids? That's a question that investigators are trying to get an answer to right now.
And then you wonder why she went to the police department to say, hey, she's okay, as opposed to contacting the family that had been looking for her all this time.
All just unfolding within the last hour. You're right.
Sean Lay will, of course, be hearing more from him a little bit later this evening on First at 4. In other news this afternoon, the reward in the search for missing 16-year-old Trenton girl now has been raised to $7,500. This is Amaria Hall. She actually went missing back in July after she ran away from home. Police say that the teen packed a bag of clothes and left while her family was sleeping. And her family, as you can imagine, they're very concerned because she suffers from depression and is without her medication, and they fear that she could be a victim of human trafficking. If you have any information, you are asked to contact Crime Stoppers. All right, so we got off to a pretty cold, wet, and nasty start to the day, and things really haven't gotten that much better. Let's send things over to meteorologist Brandon Roo. He's got your evening and your weekend forecast at that.
Evrod, the only thing that has gotten better is that we've warmed up a couple of degrees, so the ice threat no longer there. You see middle 30s, all 4 zones, 36 Ann Arbor and Metro. A pesky east wind. We'll talk about the impact of that in just a second. But here is 4 Live radar, and we are also starting to see some good news here with some breaks coming up. All the wet weather coming from south to north and all on the liquid side, with an occasional little wet snowflake or 2 over parts of Sanilac County, over Lake Huron. But you can see what is still to come. We have some bouts of heavy rain at times through the afternoon and evening that will make for a nasty commute. So we have temperatures 36 to 38 degrees. Some breaks in the action, but through the late afternoon, some heavier rounds of rain still to come. So we look for a sloppy commute, potential flooding out there on the roads, tricky travel. So your best weapon is the Local Forecasters app. We've got interactive radar, the complete weather details, any watches, warnings, advisories, everything is right there. It's free in your app store under WDIV. Evrod?
All righty, Brandon, thank you. Just into the Local 4 newsroom, we have learned that Governor Gretchen Whitmer will deliver the Democratic response to President Trump's State of the Union address. And you can see the president's address and the governor's response right here on Local 4. That is scheduled for February 4th. Meanwhile, in less than an hour, it is the final chance for House managers in the impeachment trial to make their case against President Trump and try to win over at least 4 Republican senators. Jay Gray is following the historic proceedings for us from Capitol Hill.
As House managers close their opening arguments, their focus is on the second article of impeachment, accusing the president of obstruction of Congress by failing to turn over evidence and threatening to block administration witnesses.
Why were you so afraid of witnesses and documents? What's wrong with getting the truth on something so important as this?
The president firing back this morning online, posting the impeachment hoax is interfering with the 2020 election. But that was the idea behind the radical left do-nothing dim scam attack. They always knew I did nothing wrong. Democrats countering, saying over 3 days they've meticulously laid out an overwhelming case against the president.
You can't trust this president do what's right for this country. This is why, if you find him guilty, you must find that he should be removed.
While Republicans continue to argue they've heard nothing new.
In my district, they're tuning this out.
And that the accusations against the president don't rise to the level of criminal activity or impeachment.
This is the weakest case for impeachment in the history of this country. We continue to see how flimsy this case is.
The president's defense team will open their case this weekend. President Trump tweeting that the Saturday start is a slight, calling it Death Valley on TV. And there are indications his lawyers may withhold their most powerful arguments for Monday and Tuesday, when more people may be paying attention to the trial. Jay Gray, NBC News, Washington.
All righty, Jay, thank you. That trial starts back up at 1 this afternoon. Of course, we're going to carry it live here for you on air and online at clickondetroit.com. The City of Detroit Fire Department is looking to put an end to its selfie photo controversy. Take a look. You might remember this viral photo of the group in front of a fully involved house fire that brought internal punishments today, in fact. Rob Maloney has the story.
The scar that is left behind for the city of Detroit in this fire is surpassed by the black eye that the city and the fire department received as a result of a social media posting that happened the night this place burned. It is the smoldering selfie that went viral, the Facebook posting of a fully involved Detroit home, a couple of dozen firefighters posing with wide smiles. It was meant as a farewell shot for a retiring captain, and now acknowledged by all involved poor judgment, especially since the house was being renovated at the time. Detroit Firefighters Union official Chris Smith told Local 4 this morning how the disciplinary hearing inside the Southwest headquarters for a dozen firefighters and several sergeants went.
There were some suspensions, and then we'll just go from there. We'll get back with the department and follow up and see where we go from here.
The photo, of course, makes it look like the firefighters weren't trying to put out the fire. That wasn't the case. Investigation showed, and these pictures the union provided as well, that they did fight the fire, even going into the building. But it was burning too badly to save, so the chief pulled the crews out, and they went into what's called a defensive posture, making sure the fire doesn't spread any farther. Smith says Detroit's firefighters put their lives on the line daily and admits this is a hard lesson learned in the social media era.
I don't anticipate anything like this happening again. I don't think that it was anything intentional to bring any negative light.
Now, we reached out to the Higginbotham family that owns this house to get their reaction to the discipline. They opted out because they're suing the city. In Detroit, Rod Maloney, Local 4.
Rob, thank you. Former Livingston County Judge Teresa Brennan reported to jail just a few hours ago. She had pleaded guilty to perjury last month and faced charges of tampering or destroying evidence, perjury, and misconduct in office. She could have faced 15 years in prison if she was convicted in trial, but those charges were dropped as part of her plea deal. Now she's going to serve her 6-month sentence at the Livingston County Jail. All right, new at noon, the second case of that deadly coronavirus has been confirmed here in the U.S., and this time it is very close by in Chicago. Nearly 35 million people are on lockdown in China, where it originated or is believed to have originated, and it's part of an effort there to stop the spread of the illness. At least 26 people have been killed by the virus in China. Chinese officials believe the virus came from an infected animal. A new hospital is being built to treat patients of the coronavirus, and once that's completed, the hospital is expected to take 1,000 patients by February 3rd. We are heading into the weekend, and you know what that means. Another round of construction closures on major freeways. So starting on Sunday at 3 a.m., I-75 is going to be shut down in both directions from I-94 to Clay, so you'll need to use the Lodge as a detour around all of that. And then the I-94 ramp to northbound I-75 is going to be closing at the same time. So for a complete list of all the closures around Metro Detroit, you can head to clickondetroit.com to get around them. Well, we all know online dating is very common, and it's a great way to connect with someone, but it can be sketchy if you ask certain people. Often it's the first time that people meet in person. And coming up, Tinder's got a new feature, a new safety feature that will alert police when something goes wrong. But first, a loud explosion wakes up an entire Texas neighborhood. New at noon, a neighbor describes the terrifying blast that got him out of bed.